But in that sense, I mean, I'm not admitting anything, but I'm going to... I feel that I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing until I'm done with what I'm doing. Until I can stop getting something from it. Because, I mean, I've had so many wonderful experiences as opposed to not so many bad experiences.
Well, we wanted to give you an example of some things, and we're not trying to talk you toward or away from anything. We just want to give you some insight that will help you to understand why you feel so strongly the way you do. First of all, there is an emotional scale where on one end of it, you could feel completely powerless. And on the other end of it, you could feel completely empowered. Empowered is who you naturally are. It's how you felt when you came forth into this physical body. And close to that vibration of utter freedom is the feeling of elation, the feeling of love, the feeling of passion. And down there where that feeling of disempowerment is a feeling of bondage. It's a feeling of oppression. It's a feeling of fear is very close to the vibration of that. And of course, lots of emotions in between that. So if a person is feeling, for whatever reason, fear or depression, and the source is calling them home, so to speak, the sensation that they would have if they are hearing the call at all would be one of anger, even one of revenge. And much of the world who might witness that person now in an attitude of revenge would say, oh, that's a terrible thing. Most people would rather that you were depressed than in revenge, because you're in a lot less trouble when you're depressed. But we would rather see you in a state of revenge or anger, because you're moving in the right direction, and at least you're getting some of your power back.
It's positive action, basically. Because
it's moving in the right direction.
You'd rather do something than nothing.
But a lot of people don't keep moving. In other words, they go from depression to revenge, from depression to revenge, because they don't have any sense that they were moving in the right direction. And this is the factor that we wanted to speak to you. They're factoring in the response of other people around them. And so they're not doing what feels best to them necessarily. They're having the knee-jerk response to the way the public is responding to them. So it's really a rare person in your environment who can have their own real experience where they're just making decisions based upon how it feels in their relationship with who they are. Most people are reaching for that and don't know it, and only find it by some means, like, in other words, there are a lot more people who have utilized drugs that have stumbled upon, in the absence of resistance, their alignment, than those who have meditated their way there. And so we are not surprised that people are gravitating toward it, but we also notice that it isn't working for them, because what happens is, at first, it doesn't take too much of it in order to give them that experience, but then the chemistry of their body acclimates to the substance, and then they need far more in order to have that experience, and then their body acclimates again, and then they need far more in order for them to have any of the experience that they're reaching for.
And then again, when all is said and done, it's still only a temporary fix in the first place.
And that's the most important thing. It has given them insight as to what is possible, but in their state of detachment, they aren't lucid enough to actually achieve a vibrational shift. Now, here's another piece of it that we think will help you. Speaking of this vortex, and we so like it when we find an analogy that makes it easy to explain and then easy to apply. And we know you're sick of hearing about the vortex, but if you will make the concept your friend, a lot of things that you're living will come into clarity for you. And so let's say that something has happened and you're putting yourself in your bed to sleep at night, and you are really upset about it. You're outside the vortex. Even though while you slumber, you reemerge into pure positive energy, when you wake up, you're right where you were before you slept. Because even though as you are sleeping, you're reemerging into pure positive energy, because you're sleeping, you don't take the vibrational change. In other words, it's not something that you can sustain. And nearly the same thing happens during the use of drugs. So it can be a pleasurable experience.
But when you come down, you're still in the same place.
And you've allowed it because the drug helped you to release some temporary resistance, but you really didn't do the work of releasing the resistance, so you really didn't gain anything. Now we're going to explain to you the reason that drugs are so sought after. Every one of you knows that you should feel like this. You should feel alive, and you should feel clear-minded, and you should feel expansive, and you should feel worthy, and you should feel sure of yourself. You should feel enlivened. You should feel exhilarated. That's who you are. And so we're not surprised when something helps you to feel that way, that you say, I like that, and I'm going to keep doing that. And we say, we like it too. And we don't blame you for going about it in that way, but there are other ways that you can go about it. Now you know what you know, that we promise you will give you the same feeling of enlivenment once you allow it.
And actually, as I'm starting to mature with age, I'm finding more and more things that are actually allowing me to align myself with myself, like skateboarding. I don't feel, held back whatsoever, except when, I get a helmet fine.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because you get in the vortex and you find that feeling of freedom. And then someone disapproves of your behavior. But do you know that if you could focus on the exhilaration that you feel when you soar, and feel the exhilaration of the perfection of your mind and body state, and bask in the deliberateness of your agility, and make lists of the positive aspects of all of that, if you were tuned there, the finer would not find you.
Thank you.
When you sustain your trip by getting into the vortex, there are no fines in the vortex. There are no crash and burns in the vortex. There is no sickness in the vortex. There's no confusion in the vortex. In other words, you're aligning with the best of all that you've put there. We were visiting with a woman one day. She was very angry because she had been given a ticket. And she said to us, Abraham, I was listening to your recording when it happened. So I just don't get how, if I'm tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and I obviously was as I was listening to this recording, how something like that would happen. And we said, what was your ticket for? And she said, for not wearing a seatbelt. And we said, how do you feel about that? And she said, I think it is a ridiculous law. I think it is a bogus law. I think it is taking away our freedoms and stripping away our rights. And I think it is just an awful thing. And she went on quite a while. It was sort of a hair-blowing back experience for anyone who was listening at her feeling of anger about this ridiculous, in her words, law. And we said to her, so even though you're listening to something that we hope was making you feel better than that, there's this undercurrent of resentment that you've been harboring for a very long time. So here is the finer who was out trolling for revenue. Truly, that's what they're doing. Out trolling for revenue, and he is a psychic person because he's been doing this for a long time. And there you are, and you are radiating your resentment, and just like broadcasting, saying, pick me, pick me, pick me, pick me. And so even though there were thousands of cars that were moving on the San Francisco freeway, she lit right up for him in a very powerful way, because that was the vibration that was active within her, you see. And that's the thing that is so interesting about the drug scene and the drug war and the misunderstanding around it. It's why you feel so much resentment by so many people who are giving you so much information, who haven't even tried the stuff, who don't really even know what they're talking about. And we say, as you mature even more, you're going to discover that most of the world at all times is not in sync with you. Most of the world. Most of the world is going to be on a different wavelength than you are on just about every subject of the world.
That happens on a daily basis anyway with me.
It's such a wonderful thing when you come to realize that it's not your job to please them, and it's not their job to please you, that it is all of your individual jobs to come into alignment, which is what the drugs taught you a long time ago, you see. So when you let your dominant intent be to be in alignment with who you are, so that from inside the vortex you're viewing this world that misunderstands so many things, it's an interesting thing. What's bothering you is not that the world misunderstands. What's bothering you is that when you're not in the vortex, you don't understand either. So all of these people banging around outside the vortex, not in sync with who they are or what they want or with their clarity or with their ability to reason, just bickering with each other over whose terrible way of life is the best one. And we say, when you get into the vortex, everything comes into perspective for you. And then we're not saying that from inside the vortex you will never feel the desire to participate in something to stimulate your awareness of things. But we are saying that when you get into the vortex deliberately and you raise your vibration by the power of directing your focus to things that bring you back into your empowerment, that all experiences that you have will be enhanced. All experiences will be enhanced. The best kept secret is the vortex. The best kept secret drug is the vortex. The Garden of Eden is the vortex. The path of well-being is the vortex. The key to all freedom that you seek is in the vortex. In other words, it's a vibrational state of being that aligns you with the larger part of who you are. And there is no substitution for it. No substitution for that.
Thank you very much.